The White Sox have an important draft coming up on Sunday, and hopefully it is the start of turning the franchise's terrible fortunes around. First, let's take an inventory of what the Sox currently have in their system that might help the next competitive team with my guest next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of Southside Showdown, part of the Fansided Network. You can check out my written content at SouthsideShowdown.com. And also, I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. Thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. Also follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. And this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Now, the Sox are on pace to finish with a historically bad record, but with the new lottery rules, they'll not pick in the top 9 in next year's draft as a result of probably being historically bad. And that is why there's no real payoff for being this bad. But the Sox do have the number 5 pick in this year's draft, and that puts them in a position to get a building block toward rebuilding this team into a competitive team, maybe by 2026, 2027. But before you and I look at what the future prospects the Sox might be able to add, let's get a more in-depth update. And I had a conversation with FutureSox's Ian Eskridge, and let's hear what he had to say. Why are you so committed to prospect coverage? Because you guys rock when it comes to covering the White Sox prospects.
Nobody else does it. That was basically like the whole thing, you know. When I started doing it, there was a want of some kind of coverage of, say, Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez and Yohan Moncada and Michael Kopech and guys like that. And I just kind of started doing it from there, and it's kind of just escalated a bunch.
All right, so the Sox are lacking on hitting prospects. How true is that from your perspective?
I mean, they're definitely pitching heavy. I think that there's a bunch of guys that need time to develop and get some at bats under their belt. And I think that, I wouldn't say that there's a lack of bats. It's just how many are going to be impact major league bats, I guess is the way to put it. I think that right now, the guys that have highly ranked in the system, they still need some time to marinate down in the minor leagues. And it's just not going to be something that's going to allow you to snap your fingers and everything's going to be better on the south side. That's going to take a while.
So Sox top hitting prospect, Colson Montgomery, he's struggling to hit velocity. How concerning should that be right now?
I mean, he's still young. And he puts together some pretty decent at bats most of the time. There are some at bats where he doesn't look as locked in, It's just going to be obviously there's a learning curve there, and everybody doesn't develop in the exact same in the exact same time period. They say development is not linear. So it's not like he's going to get from point A to point B and, he gets to AAA and now, he's just going to get better throughout the entire time. There's going to be bumps in the road. And right now he's kind of having that. But I mean, ultimately, as far as, WRC plus goes and stuff like that, his numbers aren't really all that bad. So, we'll see.
Yeah, and the thing that I'm going a little off script here, but the thing that I'm not a huge fan of right now with the Colson Montgomery coverage is everybody's just focusing on the slash line, and it's like, okay, well, if he's having struggle hitting velocity, that's just an adjustment he needs to make. It's not like the end of the world. And, okay, maybe his floor is Paul DeYoung, but that's still a productive baseball player, not what ideally you'd want for a top 20 prospect. But I wanted to get your insight because, again, you watch a lot of minor league film, and I love that.
Probably watched the most.
Yeah. So one guy that I know that you have a ton of highlights on, George Wolcott. Hopefully I pronounced that right. I always keep
Yep,
butchering his
that's
name.
right.
All right. Future superstar or just a dude who can hit home runs and strikes out a lot? What are we looking at
Well,
here?
I mean, obviously the natural ability that he has is something that you can't just find anywhere. You don't find 6'7", monsters that hit 475-foot home runs. You just don't find those everywhere. So it's kind of one of those things where he's very early on in his development. He's just 18 years old at the time. Doesn't turn 19, I think, until January, sometime in early January.
And shouldn't he still be
So
technically in high school?
he should have just graduated a month ago.
Yeah.
So, he's having multi-homer games in A-ball while his teammates from high school are, still, trying to figure out what they're going to do for college and all that stuff. And he's definitely advanced for the age. It's just going to be one of those things where it's going to take him time to figure out what the pitchers are doing to him and to make some adjustments. Obviously, last week he was the Carolina League Player of the Week, and he had a 1,600 OPS in that week, and I think he went like 10 for 21 with 3 home runs and 2 triples. So, it's possible. It's one of those things though that we have to. I don't want to. I got a question saying, oh well, if he thinks, if you think that if he keeps on playing like this, is he going to be in Birmingham later on this year? And I was like, hold on,
Yeah.
pal. Like we're not making any of those kind of projections. It's just it's nice to see out of an 18-year-old. It's not what they expected.
Well, and especially since that's basically stealing a first round pick. I mean, he probably would be a first round pick in this year's draft. I would be hopeful maybe do they send him to Winston-Salem by the end of the season if he can cut down the strikeouts, but I wouldn't be like, hey, let's get him to Birmingham. Let's pump the brakes there, folks. Jacob Gonzalez, though, speaking of someone who did get to Double-A after causing some concerns last year's first round pick, is he going to be able to man second base for 6 or more seasons? Because the Sox still have not found somebody to replace Ray Durham, for crying out loud.
I mean, I'm not going to put a number on it. I think that he's definitely somebody that could get to the major leagues and put in some time there. But, ultimately it's like, who knows what the results are going to be when he gets there. I mean, he was, the pedigree's there for him to be drafted in the first round. He was rated as being, one of the top 5 guys in that draft. And, his season didn't, his last season in college didn't go as planned. And, when he came to Kannapolis last year, the swing looks way different now than it did then. So all of the concerns that you heard, about how bad he looked last year, has been flipped on its ear because everything mechanically looks way different. And the results have shown, he's had some pretty good results. I mean, he's kind of, he's having like a little slump here right at the moment, but I mean, it's not anything catastrophic, so I think that he's going to continue to move. He's just going to have to go through this little period where he needs to make some adjustments and then move on.
All right, Ian is sticking around for a full show, so let's take an inventory of the pitching prospects next. Locked On White Sox. And this episode of Locked On White Sox is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rival cities with hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You just might find your perfect stay even in your baseball rival cities. After the All-Star break, the Sox are going to Kansas City. Head out there, check out the Negro League Museum, get some barbecue, and check out visiting another rival stadium off your list. The Texas Rangers have a relatively newish stadium. Head on down to Arlington and cross off that stadium as the Sox will play a 4-game series after playing Kansas City. So use Booking.com to find a place to lay your head. From hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices. across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com, on the site, or in the Booking.com app. And the Chicago White Sox, yeah, they're terrible this season, but it is still professional baseball being played at Guaranteed Rate Field. Paul Skeens is not likely to pitch this weekend at Guaranteed Rate Field, but Garrett Crochet is slated to start on July 12th, and there might be only so many starts he makes for the Southsiders. So with all these trade rumors swirling around, you might want to go check out a game when he pitches on the 12th. That is why, if you want to take in a game, use the Game Time app. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guaranteed. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. They got zone deals. Save even more when you choose a section. Let Game Time choose the seats. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Excuse me. And the White Sox and Minnesota Twins were rained out last night, so they'll play a straight-up doubleheader. The first pitch of the first doubleheader is 1:10 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with the SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Again, excuse me. I keep battling this cold. I'm sorry, in there. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter, and thank you for making the show your first listen. Lots of great White Sox podcasts out there, especially like Future Sox. And Ian, where can we find your content?
You can find all of the written content on our site at FutureSox.net. You can also find our podcast anywhere you find podcasts. You can see us stream on YouTube at our YouTube channel, and also on twitch.tv/FutureSox. You can find me at Daily White Sox on Twitter. And yeah, it's about the long and short of it.
Yeah, and you have like the best highlight videos for any prospect out there. That's why I always say check out Future Sox for basically all your prospects needs. I know like Sox on 35th, they try to do stuff, and I'm not knocking them, but and I know Southside Sox do good work, but you guys do some excellent work. That's why I love having you guys on. So everyone is raving about the White Sox pitching prospects. Are they for real, in your opinion?
I mean, obviously, you'd want to get into specifics to find out who exactly you're talking about, but there are a lot of quality arms in the White Sox farm system. Their entire Double-A rotation, this year is Eder and Iriarte and Mason Adams and Noah Schultz and Drew Thorpe. Obviously, you've seen Drew Thorpe as of late up with the White Sox, and he was dominant in Double-A, just kind of skipped right over Triple-A, and all of them put up great numbers. And you move Drew Thorpe and you bring in Tyler Schweitzer, and he puts in some decent outings as well. There's just a lot of pitching, and there's a lot of good pitching, and Kai Busch just made his AAA debut tonight. Went like 3 1/3 innings, and it didn't go perfect, but it's to be as expected, when he's moving up levels. But there's a lot of power arms and a lot of just great pitchers, not just throwers. They're not guys that just throw 100 miles an hour and you don't know where the ball's going. Like, a lot of these guys are solid command pitchers, and it's you can see from the amount of highlights that I put up of these White Sox org pitchers and their starts, just how many quality arms they have.
All right, so is Noah Schultz? He's going to be greater than Randy Johnson.
Sure, why not?
Why is it when there's a tall pitcher, they have to be the next Randy Johnson? I don't know why.
I mean, it kind of makes sense, and he's got like the same kind of arm slot, and like that I get. The difference between him and Randy Johnson is Randy Johnson couldn't throw strikes for, once he was drafted, he couldn't throw strikes for like, a few years. So Noah Schultz is already better than him in that aspect. So if he's already landing his slider for strikes all the time. So, is he going to be better than Randy Johnson? Who knows, but he's really impressive. That I'll say, his fastball's good. He's got pretty good command. He's working on, he added a cutter this year. He's just decided to add a cutter into his arsenal, and it's nasty as well. So, I think that he has a bright future. Like I'm not going to, project for him to be better than Randy Johnson, or even comparable. I mean, even if you get, 2/3 of a Randy Johnson, it's still really good. I don't know. It's we'll see how it goes as things progress with him. But right now, he looks pretty close to untouchable most of the time. So looks good.
Yeah, I would like him to at least develop into a good pitcher. Unlike, remember John Roch? He was, supposedly the next Randy Johnson, and he was terrible for the Sox. He obviously became a very good closer elsewhere. All right, so which pitching prospect do you think is actually going to live up to the hype outside of Schultz?
To the hype, I mean, I guess it would. To varying degrees of hype for all of these guys, like who's going to be the best. I mean, right now, if you're going by pitchability standards, you've got Drew Thorpe and Mason Adams are both more precision pitchers, and then you've got a guy like Grant Taylor right now who is just pitched an A-ball this year, but I want to say he was somewhere around like a 2 strikeouts an inning average for his time that he pitched. He had a strained lat, so he's on the IL right now, and he's just coming off a TJ, so that's gonna be one of those things where it's gonna take him a little bit of time to kind of get back to what he's doing. But from what we saw of him, he looked phenomenal right out of the gate. So.
All right, who's likely to fail? I mean, they're all likely. I mean, it's a prospect, but who's the one where you're like, I don't see it?
I mean, like I've got like some guys where I think that they're not. It's not that I will say that they're going to fail. I would say more that where they're going to end up isn't going to be where they were projected to, like what they were projected to be. I wouldn't say that that's failing. I would just say that it's, you have to lower the expectations of what you originally thought. If you look at like, somebody like Nick Nastrini, where there's been a lot of walks, and at some point you're going to have to reevaluate where you thought you were going to be able to slot him in. And I'm not saying that he in particular is going to be the guy who's going to be, not successful. It might be in a different role, and something might click for him, and the command comes back. He had problems out of college with his command, and the Dodgers kind of helped him to figure that out. And he's kind of had like a little bit of a regression this year with his command. You look at his stat lines in Charlotte, and he's walking 5-6 guys, and obviously that's not going to be something that's going to put you in a top of the rotation position. Not that they, I kind of think that they had him slotted somewhere down around 4 or 5 anyway. But that's not going to fly there. And also you can't put him in a relief role if, he's walking a guy an inning. That's also something that you don't want to do. So he's going to have to work,
All right. So do the Sox need pitching at least the top of the draft in this year's draft.
I mean, are you saying with the first pick?
With let's say they're first in the first 2 rounds.
Well, James and I have talked about this a lot on the stream/podcast. And he responded to somebody's tweet today saying that, they should be grabbing a lot of bats in the draft. And his reply was, well, you can't just make these guys appear. You can't conjure up these great hitters in the draft when they're just not, the depth is much better in pitching than it is with bats, at least with, guys that are going to be impact guys. So I think that, you'll probably see a bat in the first pick, and then you'll probably see some pitchers, that are going to get picked up. I mean, you might see a hitter here and there in the first couple of rounds. But I think it's going to be quite a bit of pitching, just simply due to the, sheer numbers of pitchers that are out there that are at least have the possibility of being very high quality arms.
All right, we're gonna have segment 3 with Ian. I got to ask him about some of the tape that he's been seeing, so we'll get to that after the break. Next on Locked On White Sox. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports, and unlike other apps, on PrizePicks is just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less and 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. And you can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You could turn $10 into $1,000. PrizePicks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including Illinois, Wisconsin, and Indiana. And I've always told you about my old college buddy who I keep in touch with on those text chains. And he loves PrizePicks because he lives behind the cheddar curtain, but still can get his selections in. And I like PrizePicks because it's so simple to use, and they have good options to pick more or less from. Like when it comes to picking them more or less on Luis Robert Jr. hitting a home run, it's usually literally a decision of thinking yes or no, since most times I see it at 0.5. Again, it can change though. But download the PrizePicks apps today and use code LOCKDOWNMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKDOWNMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. The White Sox and the Minnesota Twins, they are rained out. So the finale is actually going to be a double header for the 3-game set. First pitch of the double header is at 1:10 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Welcome back into Locked On White Sox. I got Ian Eskridge from FutureSox with me today as we take an inventory of the minor league system, as I want to get everybody ready for the MLB draft. James, his partner in crime, Fox, is going to join me tomorrow to give a draft preview. And then I got Elijah Evans to kind of round out on Friday to get you ready for maybe what other teams could do that could ruin the Sox draft plans and also get you ready for the trade deadline. The FutureSox guys, they're awesome, and they're always willing to give their time for me, so I want to make sure that I plug. Again, Ian, where can we find your work?
FutureSox.net. You can find all of the written content, obviously, at FutureSox on the X / Twitter. You can find all the video highlights. Also, every night I upload a video of all the starting pitching and the home runs that are hit throughout the day as well.
All right, so of the hitting prospects the Sox have and that you've put together, who has had the best highlights so far?
It's got to be George Wolko. I mean, it has to be. Just in the short time that he's been up, he's hit just grandiose home runs, that go over the tops of the billboards out in the outfield and just are massive. And, he's made some, adjustments and stuff, and the at-bats are looking better and the approach is looking better. So, I would have to say that that's probably the number one, just because it's been so freakish. Brooks Baldwin's put together some really nice stretches. I mean, obviously the guy was hitting like 360 or something at some point, 370 in Double-A. So you can't do that without putting together, some nice highlight stuff. And probably Edgar Caro's probably another one of them that's also, had some nice home runs and put together some really nice games as well.
All right, so it seems like we're I'm going off a little off script here, but it seems like we're always talking about Ramos, Caro, Montgomery, Gonzalez, Baldwin. Is there anybody else and Walkosh? Is there anybody else that we should know about hitting wise that we're just not seeing? Because again, you watch practically every game.
So Caden Connor, who just got promoted to Winston-Salem today, made his first appearance there, and his first hit was a home run in Winston-Salem. So that was not well. Actually, it was in Greensboro, but he's had a fairly nice year so far. He's been hitting right around like 300 with a fairly high OPS as well. There's a guy in the ACL, Javier Mogollon, who's this short second baseman guy, and he's got a lot of pop in his bat, and he seems like he's a lot of fun. Now, obviously, I can't watch the ACL because they don't televise him, so but like all the video I've seen, guy hits the ball really hard, and he's one of those ones that people don't know a ton about yet. Probably end up see him sometime here after the draft is my guess. But with the way that they've changed the rookie league, the ACL this year, they changed when it ends, like when it starts and when it ends. So you can't send your college guys to the ACL this year to get a couple of weeks before they come to, affiliated ball. So, we'll see how exactly teams handle that, because we don't know exactly yet, because this is the first time it's happened. So we'll see.
All right. And does winning matter in the minor leagues? Because the White Sox love to be pumping right now that, hey, we're winning in the minors. But does it really matter? Shouldn't it be about the individual performances?
It does. It does.
Okay.
There's ultimately that's not the goal, is to try and win a AA title. No organization sets out and says, hey, whatever, the White Sox can be terrible as long as, the Cannonballers and the Dash and the Barons and the Knights, as long as they're winning, we're good. Nobody says that, it's obviously the main goal of minor league baseball is to develop your players. But I think that one of the things that they've been doing in the draft is they've been drafting leadership type guys. And I think that that's really helped with, the culture, that word that you hear so thrown around so much lately. I think it really helps with that. And I think that kind of fosters a winning, development type mindset down there in the minors, and it helps with winning.
Well, hey, after we saw culture basically destroy 2023, I'll take a little bit of the culture. That's like one of the splitting hairs when it comes to I almost think there's like 8 tools you should measure. It's the 5 original, and then can you get on base? Can you, can you basically be a decent character? How do you learn that type of stuff? So I get that. So anyways, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. But before I go, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. And Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I'll be back tomorrow with Ian's colleague, James Fox of Future Sox. We're going to preview the draft. Again, Ian, I really appreciate you coming on and giving basically an inventory of what the Sox have. So in that way we can get into the next thing is one of the most important drafts. So I really appreciate it, man.
Oh, thanks, Todd. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube page at Locked On White Sox. And where can they subscribe to your YouTube page?
I don't know the exact link to it. You just search Future Sox on the old YouTube and you'll find us. It's like YouTube, or it's like Future Sox 3729 or something like that. I forget.
Yeah, I think it was like 3922 or something. Yeah, something weird. Also, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sox wherever you get your podcasts, and to the Future Sox wherever you get your podcast. Feel free to leave comments about today's chat with Ian. Yes, guys, I know I had a cold and I apologize again. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X formerly Twitter, at Todd J. Dub, or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.